Hey guys, what's up? It is week 473. I have some reviews for you. Let's just jump right in. And the first one up is a 4K release of Takashi Miike's infamous film here from the late 90s, Audition. Now, Arrow put this one out on Blu-ray probably close to 10 years ago, which blows my mind, to be honest, because I covered it when they put the Blu-ray out. Now we're like redoing 4Ks. This is like almost 10 years since the release, maybe more like 8 or so. But surprised that was the first time I saw Audition. Now, Takashi Miike was a director who was obviously not new to me. I had seen Ichi the Killer. He's a pretty infamous, Japanese director and prolific as well. He can do almost all different kinds of styles. And before this, he was doing, the V cinema stuff, which kind of was he made his name for. And he was pretty successful with that. And he made a couple, popular films. Agitator was one that was a pretty good one. Dead or Alive. So eventually they offered him this one, and he had not really done too many horror films, listen to the commentaries and all those things like that. So he jumped into this one, and he knocked it out of the park. He had done a couple before this, but this kind of put him on the map, and after that, Takashi Miike was kind of known as a horror director, and he's directed over 100 films, so a lot of them are horror films, including Visitor Q and One Missed Call. But I would say that Audition is definitely one of the, I don't want to say just the crown jewel in his filmography, but it's definitely one of his many crown jewels, I would say. So this is based off a book, which is another thing that I actually didn't know, or I had forgotten. I'd learned once and forgotten. So this is an odd one here, and the screenwriter adapted the book. Takashi Miike went forward with it, and it seems that according to Tom Mez and Tony Raines, listen to the special features, he kind of mixed a little bit of the book and the screenplay, and was a little bit different. Kind of took his own little approach, but used some of the book and whatnot. So essentially, the story follows, I guess we just say like the antagonist and protagonist here. We have this middle-aged man who's lost his wife 7 years ago. In the very beginning, we open up with a real sad scene where a father and son have to say goodbye to their mother and wife. And the father is always drinking. It's not like ever said out loud that he's an alcoholic, but he's constantly has a glass in hand. It's something that he always does, not just socializing by himself. When he's having dinner, he'll pour himself a glass. It's a vice that he has. And it seems he works for kind of like this production company. He does videos and films and shows and all that. And he has a close friend of his that he works directly with, and his close friend says, you know what? He mentions one day to his friend that he's thinking of remarrying because the son noticed that his dad is lost, he's lonely. And this is another theme in this movie. In Japan films in general, the theme of loneliness. Everybody seems to be kind of lonely in Japan. That's why a lot of the stuff like Pulse, it kind of hit really hard in that idea that all these people are like kind of being like killing themselves in this crazy kind of way after they're hit through the internet, trying to find connections through the internet. So technology and the loneliness and things of that nature has always been like kind of a staple in these Japanese movies, whether it's in the forefront or kind of in the subconscious. It seems to be there. It's definitely directly mentioned in this one. So his friend has an idea. This guy is middle-aged. He has a son who's probably late teens, early 20s. So he's probably approaching late 40s, early 50s. And he says, well, we'll find you kind of a new wife, and we're going to hold this audition. It's not going to be the winner, of course, and have these multiply talented things, kind of like America's Got Talent, one of those kind of shows like that. So they hold this elaborate audition, and even before he sees any of the contestants, he's going through the profiles, and one woman, it's almost like fate. He just catches his attention. She overcame these things. She was a ballet dancer, and she's probably 25 years old. He makes up his mind right there that's going to be kind of her. And they go through all these auditions, which is this like kind of awkward, almost comical, a montage scene with all these different people doing all these different kind of things. And it's kind of really shady, and the idea, right, that they're going to go through the show supposedly, but the idea that he's trying to find a wife and having all these people come to his women audition and stuff like that, really kind of trashy, to be honest. But at the same time, you feel for this guy to a certain extent. He's not an absolute villain. He does have altruistic kind of feelings and stuff and motives, but then again, he's going for someone half his age. So then there's that pops up that you're like, wow, this is a little iffy. But he ends up kind of dating this contestant and becomes infatuated with her, if you will, obsessed with this woman. And the first part, it seems to be awkward dates here and there, and then something strange happens when they have kind of an overnight and they supposedly sleep together. He wakes up and he doesn't really know where she's went, and he can't get a hold of her, so he starts to do some detective work. And I think this is where the story picks up. I think that the first half it flows a lot better because this is a damn near 2-hour movie, and with a lot of that kind of character development and stuff like that and setting everything up, you might lose a little interest. But the first, I think, hour is all that kind of stuff, but it really pulls you in. And then we start this kind of detective work, which is something I've always loved in Japanese Japanese films are pretty good at doing it. I would say some of the best with their Japanese mysteries and stories. So he starts to kind of dig past the curtain to try to figure out who this person is, and nothing really checks out. Things are strange. He runs into all sorts of bizarre characters, and there's these little kind of grotesque details that really add to the story that come to fruition at the end when you realize what has happened. But it's one of these stories where a lot of people do warn him in subtleties and things of that nature, and when he realizes what's going on, we are kind of rewarded, or I guess tortured with these flashes of pieces of old conversation that we kind of unveil a little bit more, but it's all done in this kind of fever dream where you don't know what is reality and what is not. And it ends in one of the most grotesque, I guess, scenes of a popular horror film. Everybody knows the infamous torture scene, and that's pretty much the only real there's a couple graphic scenes, but that's the one that stands out. But the movie as a whole is phenomenal. I think the acting is great. I think that it's a tragic kind of dark story, and as a lot of the people say on here in the features, Tom Mez in the commentary and Tony Raines in the special feature, and I think it's Alexandra Heller-Nichols goes as a video essay on here, they all kind of mention that people have always thrown this as a feminist movie, or a movie that's anti-female, but at the same time it just kind of doesn't really take sides from their understanding looking at it. They don't think that Japan is a predominantly feminist kind of society. If you look at their their pornography and things of that nature, it doesn't really ring true. And I do see it definitely being a story, and it could be a cautionary story, a paranoia story for men, but at the same time it could be a story where you kind of think that guy might have had a little bit of that coming, obviously way too far, and the idea that she thinks he's actually a complete slyball and only doing it for sex is a little tragic on his end, but at the same time, it is very creepy, the idea of what he's doing, but he ends up kind of getting something that he didn't really expect, and it's one of those stories that I love, where by the time you realize that something is completely wrong, or you don't care, or it's too far to turn back, then it's too late. And I've always found that really haunting kind of feel, and the idea, I do feel like a lot of people have these obsessive kind of traits, and they have to see how it ends, and they have to dig deeper when they're told they're not to, or something is off. There's a certain kind of person, and I think many, which probably film fans, will dig deeper into that subject matter, and that's always stories that have fascinated me. As far as new special features and old special features, we have brand new 4K restoration from the original Super 16 camera negative. Looks great. I'm actually shocked it was done on 16mm. I know a lot of the earlier V Cinema stuff was 16, but this is bigger budgeted than V Cinema as far as I could tell. It's approved by the DP Hideo Yamamoto, and then we have Dolby Vision, HDR10 compatible, new restored original lossless stereo 4.0 plus optional 5-point audio surround sound. Subtitles, of course. Introduction by director Takashi Miike. I think this is an old feature. Audio commentary by director Takashi Miike and screenwriter Tegan. I can't say his name. Daisuke Tegan. And then we have audio commentary by Miike biographer Tom Mez, examining the film and source novel. That's the original, which I enjoy that, of course. We have callback, a brand new interview with actor Roy Ishibashi. That's the lead actor in here. He says people still approach him, including the likes of Tarantino. It seems to be in every one of these stories about actors being approached by somebody. Ties that bind, an interview with director Takashi Miike, deeper into Audition, an audio essay by author and critic Alexander Heller-Nichols. This is good as well. Damaged Romance, an appreciation by Japanese cinema historian Tony Raines. That's archival. And then archival interviews with stars Roy Ishibashi, Ihasina, Renji Ishibashi, and Ren Osugi. Trailers, image gallery, collector's booklet featuring new writings on the film by Anton Bittel, Jenny Kermode, Jamie Graham, Reversible Sleep featuring newly commissioned artwork by Dark Inker, Samson, and original UK artwork by Graham Humphreys. So, fantastic movie, fantastic release of Audition. If you've not seen this one, what are you sleeping on? The late 90s, we started to get some of that great J-horror, and I think this is one of the best, and I think this put Takashi Miike on the map. They go over that and festivals and stuff like that, how he was kind of had 3 movies playing at one time, and it really kind of, set him in stone as this kind of, I guess, I don't even know if I want to call him an auteur, because I feel like that's he is, but he isn't, because he's so versatile. But then again, who says an auteur can't be versatile? You can see a lot of the Miike stuff in his films, but I've enjoyed almost all of the Takashi Miike movies, from The Happiness of the Katakuras to Agitator to Visitor Q. He's got a well-versed, I even like Terraformers, so I'm a fan, and this was one of his best, and rewatching it went up a little bit. It's a great movie. Okay, we have one coming up from Visual Vengeance, and I don't even know if I can keep a straight face while talking about this one, but this is Fungicide. Great title, hilarious title. I love what they're going for when you're talking about killer mushrooms. Montango, Attack of the Mushroom People, which is a great one by Ishihiro Honda, Japanese movie. This is not that. This is by the director, I can't think of his name, David Miscavige, who directed Suburban Sasquatch, which Visual Vengeance also put out. Suburban Sasquatch is not my movie, okay? It's not my type of humor. It's not my type of low-budget filmmaking, but David Miscavige is an odd director to me, right? Because when you see something like Fungicide, you're like, oh, this is going to be completely purposely bad movie. But then you're like, or it could be something that's a lot more, sincere and has a lot of ambition and actually works. Or it can be like the third option, which is a rarity in these movies for me. When we have something like some low budget movies that just have tons of heart and ambition, they win you over, like a lot of the early temp or a lot of the Tempe stuff. You're just like, wow, this is so ambitious and good. But then when you have something that's like purposely done bad, I always hate it. But then we have this one that kind of sits in the middle of Fungicide here. So this was a 2002 movie, I believe, actually made before Suburban Sasquatch. And like you listen to the special features and the commentary on this one, and you're like, oh, they are sincere, but at the same time they understand it's bad, but they're not trying to make it bad. It's just kind of happened to be bad, and they kept going forth with it, and they're not really making a big joke out of the whole damn thing. It's really a bizarre kind of tone in this one, and I know a lot of people like this stuff. This is totally not for me, although I'm probably guilty of being in and making movies like this myself. But hey, the plot is simple. We have a mad scientist going out to kind of vacation. He's been working too hard, and he's made this kind of super serum. We know what it's going to turn into. It's going to cause some damage, of course, and we have a group of other people who are kind of going on vacation. We have a hot-headed wrestler. We have kind of a real estate guy that wants to buy up the property, be a prick, and then we also have kind of a survivalist army guy out in the woods that's around here, and they're all kind of end up bumping into each other, staying at this kind of cabin that's ran by this kind of hippie kind of lady who loves vegetables, all that kind of stuff like that, loves nature. But what happens is our mad scientist here accidentally spills his experiment under falls under the deck, and it lands on some mushrooms, and then we have fungicide. Now the fungicide itself is a bunch of crazy mushrooms. Some are actually practical effects, or guys puppets, which are kind of fun and goofy and silly, guys in suits, which are absolutely ridiculous, and CGI, which is some of the worst and abysmal CGI ever. But in 2002, it's still bad. But hell, maybe it was a little bit better. It's been a while since I've watched something brand new from 2002. But the CGI is horrible. So basically, what we have here is a misgrouping of people that are completely over the top characters, and they have to team up to fight fungicide. What you don't really have here is good dialogue. I mean, some of the dialogue is funny. The acting is abysmal. There's just no way around it. There's just no, hey, this person's trying their best. It's not, low budget kind of gem acting or anything of that nature. Or, hey, it's just bad acting. The actors are laughing a lot of the time. You'll catch them laughing in the scene or smiling, things of that nature. And I could see that happening once or twice, leaving it in there because it's got a certain charm. But throughout the entirety of the movie, it does get old pretty fast. It also is incredibly repetitive. When they run outside, there's this long fight scene where they're fighting the fungus among us, the mushrooms, for a long frickin' time. It's absolutely ridiculous. A lot of people will eat this up. This is definitely a group kind of movie. You got to watch it in a group. Watching it by yourself like I did, I cannot wholeheartedly recommend that, because you're just gonna it wears out its welcome in about 5 fucking minutes, right? Because it's funny, and then it's just like, okay, we're still going on here. David Miscavige is in here, his wife is in here, so it's a kind of a group effort, a family effort, and you can appreciate that. I do appreciate that they're gonna make a movie no matter what. I don't think it's cynical, which is a plus on this, because if it was cynical, it would be one of the worst experiences of my life. But it not being cynical makes it have a little bit of charm and some comedy elements and things of that nature. Overall, I don't think Fungicide's a great movie. I think that it is made for a very particular crowd. A lot of people will love this. They'll enjoy it. The people that love bad movies. And I do not think this is purposely bad. I think it's just somebody making a movie with absolutely zero means and not having any budget, and still going forth and trying their best to make whatever they could. And the result is Fungicide. As far as the features, there's a decent amount. We have director-approved SD master from original tape elements, classic SOVs here. New commentary from director David Wascavage and co-writer, co-producer Mary Wascavage. Archival commentary with David Wascavage, Mary Wascavage, and David Warden. Commentary from San Patinko and B&S About Movies, and Bill Van Rye of Drive-In Asylum. commentary from Schlock and Awe Films, the full riff track version of Fungicide. So I listened to that. I listened to the riff tracks, and they're pretty funny. They're obviously not fans of the movie, but they have a good time. It's a shorter version. And the commentaries, one of the commentaries, I think the commentaries with David Wascavage and crew and family and stuff like that is a little bit better because they point out some things. It's not an overly in-depth, informational kind of drop or anything of that nature. The other two commentaries, I think the one by Sam and Bill is okay. They talk a little bit about the movie and whatnot. They do kind of not stay focused 100% onto the movie. And the other one, I think, the commentary from Shock and Awe Films, one of these commentaries, I hope I'm not mixing them up, I think it's Shock and Awe Films, they kind of just make fun of the movie the whole time. The female co-host is watching it for the first time, and the guy, and it's the same thing with the other one. The other has a guy showing it for the first time. I don't remember if it's Bill or Sam, but they both kind of follow that suit. And then I think that the riff tracks is probably the funnest track of them all. Alternate opening credits, deleted scenes, outtakes, image gallery, Troubled Moon, trailer reel, Fungicide, producer trailer, Vigil Vengeance trailers, reversible sleeve, original home artwork, folded mini poster, optional English subtitles, and we have a really funny gag in here, which looks like spores. They have little spores here, and they do mention in the commentary it reminds them a bit of Deadly Spawn, and I can see it to the smallest extent. I think this is cute. Deadly Spawn's one of my favorites, and I feel like that's like the best, like ambitious, low budget kind of monster movie, and Fungicide is what happens when you start making them in 2002, not on film with no money at all. But hey, it's definitely going to be an acquired taste, and most of the Visual Vengeance catalog they do have some great stuff coming out. I'm looking forward to checking out Cyclops, their release. Great fun Japanese movie, and they put a lot of stuff I love, but it's always a mixed bag for me. You don't know if I'm going to love them or like them, but plenty of features, and they make up for it with tons of stuff on their releases. Okay, we're starting a box set here, and this is Adventure Calls, Karl May at CCC. Now, you guys remember I did a couple CCC box sets from Eureka Films already. I did the Dr. Mabuse sets at CCC, and I did some of the creamy, Edgar Wallace kind of creamy style films that they had a box set. I enjoyed a lot of those, and I learned quite a bit. I probably forgot some of it, but we're going to start off with the first disc here, which is Old Shatterhand and Winnetou and Shatterhand in the Valley of Death. So basically Karl May. Now, this is a fantastic resource for information here on the first disc here with the commentary. I want to make sure I get the actor's name right here, or the actor's name, but the commentary, they actually do not list who did the commentary, but it's on the back here. Sorry about that. A little bit all over the place here. Sorry about that. David Callett, and he did the commentaries on the Mabuse films as well, and he's absolutely one of the best commentary people I've heard ever. So the first one here is Old Shatterhand, made in 1964, and he does a brief history. There's other features on here as well. So Karl May, hopefully I don't forget it, the features are great on here, but Karl May was one of Germany's premier writer, and whatnot, and he wrote tons and tons of stuff. He was very popular in Germany amongst people like Albert Einstein, Adolf Hitler, and he wrote a lot about Native Americans, American frontiers and stuff, and he ended up being a complete kind of hoax about his real life experiences and all these things like that, and he was like a petty criminal that served a lot of time in jail, but he did so much, he's one of the biggest sellers in Germany, and he did so much kind of pushing forth his motto of, every man is created equal, all that kind of stuff like this, and the Germany has kind of an infatuation with the American West kind of deal here, and this having the lead character in Old Shatterhand be a kind of a German import into the American frontier and befriending the Indian and fighting against the corrupt, evil American kind of said a lot of things. And they mentioned that in the commentaries and stuff like that. And I found that incredibly interesting and definitely something that you would need to know when you're watching these films about Karl May. So the first one is 1964, Old Shatterhand. He also goes into the history of Rialto Films and CCC, which were two competing companies here. So they kind of fought back on rights. They'd get this Edgar Wallace, and then somebody get the son Edgar Wallace, and they use these stories here. So Old Shatterhand was actually with Rialto, Lex Baxter, the actor, and everything like that from the Mabuse films. He plays in a couple of the Mabuse films. He actually was in the first Shatterhand, Old Shatterhand movie with Rialto, and they had the rights to the stories here, the Karl May stories. So I guess the Arthur Brenner, who ran CCC, didn't want to lose out, so he decided to make his own, kind of writing these scripts and not following the actual stories here. So that's basically what we get, these two competing kind of, Old Shatterhand these companies making their own deal, and with Winnetou as well, who's a very popular character in these stories. So boom, we actually got the original actors to pop up back in here in this movie too, but it didn't. They didn't have a script. They had a lot of trouble here. But another important, kind of like summarizing everything in the commentary, because I think this historical context really matters. So when you think German westerns, this is 64, and Germany was co-producing these with Italy and all Spain and all these other countries like that, and Italy saw this and realized we should make our own westerns, and boom, there goes the spaghetti western was born. So if these movies didn't exist, we wouldn't, and again, we kind of go back to the Edgar Wallace Krimis, maybe we wouldn't have the Giallo and the Babuza films, maybe we wouldn't have so many of the different Italian cinema as well, that we're having all these European kind of co-productions and stuff, inspiring Italy to go off on their own and make the giallis and the westerns and all that kind of stuff that we absolutely love. So it all stems back from this, and I found that incredibly interesting. I did not know that. But Old Shatterhand, the story is, I guess, it's a pretty big epic, actually, here. And the first thing that I noticed when this popped in, and I was like, I should watch this in English, German. You should watch it in English, probably, if you're English speaking, because everybody's dubbed anyways. Same kind of deal with the, Italian films. But I was taken back at how beautiful this was shot. It was shot in Yugoslavia to make it look like the Old West. Amazing cinematography. Amazing camera work, beautiful widescreen, tons and tons of horses. It's in that kind of scope, in the technical stuff, it is 100% feels like a classic, amazing Western, like a John Ford or something like that, right? I was just amazed by that kind of that thing when it popped in and how well it was, the cinematography and how beautiful and everything looked. It took me back, it was a sprawling, big movie, and I didn't really expect that, compared to, if you look at Spain or Italy's Westerns, some of them were down and dirty and cheap until Sergio Leone got more money. But Leone actually had worked with these kind of people and stuff, so that's where he got the idea to do this. Earlier on, he had worked on these kind of movies, these German Western kind of deals, co-productions, and realized that, why don't we do our own kind of deal? So this movie follows Old Shatterhand, and it is kind of like a sequel. Him and Winnetou are friends. They part ways, and what happens is, they have this peace treaty coming up with the Yankee soldiers, and I believe it's the Apache that Winnetou is part of. And there's a group of villains that are out there, and they're led by kind of a mysterious guy. We don't know who it is. And what they want to do is create a war against the Yankee soldiers and the Apache Native Americans, so they can come in and scoop up the Apache land if they make them a villain. So we got a group of villains and baddies like that. Of course, Lex Baxter, Old Shatterhand, and Winnetou are going to try to stop it. They fail a lot of times. In fact, we have a scene that's very reminiscent of Once Upon a Time in the West, even in here. We also kind of introduced this, I think, a half Native American kind of woman that becomes this kind of a very popular character. Which has a shocking scene of nudity, which actually isn't her in this movie, which kind of took me back in the being like 64 in a Western. That seems pretty wholesome besides that. And I guess this one's a little bit more violent, according to David Catlett, than the previous efforts. I've not seen those, unfortunately, by Rialto. So this was kind of an eye-opening kind of experience to me watching this movie. But so what happens is, of course, they're fighting the bad guys, trying to figure it out while Native Americans are getting killed and their bodies are planted and all that kind of stuff like that. And this movie actually does end in this big kind of sprawling battle. The heroes really don't necessarily come to the rescue, and we have this giant kind of awesome fort, all this kind of stuff like that. It's a classic Western. It's big, it's entertaining, it's got a lot of characters, it's got a couple side characters that are pretty funny, including one of which is a guy who is scalped. A lot of these characters pop up in the next film. Some of them actors pop up in the next film as different characters. But as far as the features are concerned, on the first film, Old Shatterhand, like I said, we have an amazing commentary by David Catlett. We have new introductions to each film by Sir Christopher Frelling, author of Spaghetti Westerns, Cowboys, and Europeans, from Carl May to Sergio Leone. New audio commentaries by Old Shatterhand and The Treasure of the Aztecs. Oh, that's a different one here. Yeah, this is actually just called Old Shatterhand, but I think that title is The Treasure of the Aztecs. I'm not sure which. I haven't dived into the set here. I only thought we had two Old Shatterhand movies, but we might have more on here. But then we have archival making of a documentary of Old Shatterhand, Winnetou, and Shatterhand in the Valley of Death. But it's an incredibly great-looking Western with a lot of information that I would recommend, and also directed by Harald Reinl, who did a lot of the Krimis and stuff like that, so a very known German director. Yeah, good stuff. Kind of a definitely eye-opening kind of experience watching this one. Okay, the next in the box set here in the same disc is Old Shatterhand, or Winnetou and Shatterhand in the Valley of Death. This one came, I think, 4 years? Was it 4 years later than that one? And they originally had rushed the first film into production because they didn't want to sting while the iron was hot. And this, I think, was the last one that CCC did with both the original actors, because they were kind of fighting over, the actor who played Winnetou, the French guy. They couldn't really get him. So a lot of things were confusing. And Lex Baxter was very loyal to CCC because they got him his start. He was this kind of an American actor that didn't really get these big roles until this kind of stuff here. So the sequel sequel I enjoyed actually a little bit more. I don't think it's a better movie or anything like that. It's just very much, slimmed down, and I guess this is more in the aspect of the first kind of Shatterhand film, but it's a very simple kind of story here. We have this, I think he's a colonel in the Yankee Army, and he knows where this gold is. He ends up dying, and he tells, I think it's Winnetou, where the gold is buried, where it's hidden and stuff like that. He's not stealing it, but he just doesn't want anything bad to happen to it, and basically the guy's daughter is brought into court, and she's trying to clear his name because everybody thinks he's a shiesty piece of crap now, possibly stole the gold. So old Shatterhand and Winnetou are going to kind of try to, clear his name and help this woman travel. The same woman from the previous film, as far as I could tell. Maybe I'm wrong on that. That'd be horrible. But they're going to travel across country and kind of figure out where this is, and they're going to run into these bandits that are trying to find the gold for themselves. Of course, evil bandits, a whole slew of them, probably 30 guys. There's some memorable character actors in there. And then we're also going to run into this kind of more aggressive Native American kind of group. I think it's Comanches, and the leader of that is like Red Bull, and he's this big burly like bodybuilding guy. I think he's a Russian guy bodybuilding, or Eastern European guy bodybuilding kind of guy. They need to look like a Native American, so his look is pretty odd. Usually we see a lot of like Italians or Spanish people dressed up as Native Americans, and but this one we have this kind of big bulky kind of kind of guy like as the Native American. We have a fight scene, of course, between Winnetou, and the whole movie kind of boils down to like greed is bad, but the sets are fun. They run across all sorts of different kind of adventure kind of scenarios where they have to fight. They come across snakes and things of that nature. There's some animal cruelty obviously in here. It's not like it's obvious that something bad's horrible's happening to animals, but you could tell definitely something did not happen. I'm sure there was some casualties in here. I just like this one because it's more straightforward. There's some stupid stuff. I think like both movies kind of have some silly stuff that just kind of fit the mold, and there's something kind of missing, I think, between the American Western. I think maybe the revisionist Western came out and kind of changed people's attitudes a lot about Western. So when like you watch kind of the ones that aren't even American movies, like where the good guy, the white hat, the black hat, you see these kind of German movies and they have this kind of silly kind of like lighthearted quality to them. But then again, they're not exactly your traditional straightforward Western either, because we have the Native American characters, which are portrayed usually as heroic or as victims in these movies. So that's not necessarily what you'd see in your everyday movie either. And 1970 would have Soldier Blue in America, so it's like completely different. But this is in the 60s as well. So I mean, the original westerns are probably even 50s and stuff, and predate the 50s and before. But this does seem to have this kind of cheesy, happy-go-lucky kind of quality there, where at one point the Native Americans say, "Well, if you beat me, we'll let all these people go," even though half of them are bad villains that they're going to track down and try to kill them later. So it's like, you can keep these guys, because you're just saving me from killing them later. But memorable bad guys, good cast in here as well. Pretty much a lot of the same cast. Just an hour. It's 90 minutes, so it goes by much quicker. I think it's just better paced. I enjoyed both films. I thought they were really interesting, and I really liked the commentary by David Catlett. We'll check out the second disc next week. Okay, we're starting another box set here, and this one's from Severn Films, and this is The Worlds of Lucile Hadžihalilović. Sorry, I know I mispronounced that. It's a very hard word here. Nice box set. I love how they do their box set designs here. We're going to start with their first film in the box set here, and I have heard a lot about this director. I know that Elric Kane does a podcast, Pure Cinema Podcast. I listen to that a lot, and he's always been a champion of this director's work, and I've always been wanting to check it out. And this one is probably, I think, his favorite. This is this director's first film here, and this is from 2004. This is Innocence, and this is actually based on a novel as well. It seems to be the kind of theme this week, right? Based on a novel. But this actually had another adaptation that came out a year later, which a lot of people, the special features, don't think is as successful. It's a tongue twister for me here. But yeah, so this one, it opens up, and I had no idea what to expect. I noticed it was kind of dark almost immediately. We have this, and I mean visually and just the kind of theme and whatnot. It's definitely a coming-of-age story that kind of focuses on a group of girls, and there's a lot of mystery to be had where nothing is really explained, and you kind of can start piecing it together, and by the time you get to the very end, you think you have it figured out, but maybe you really don't, or maybe it's something a little bit different. But nonetheless, I thought the performances were great, I thought the visuals were great, and I felt uncomfortable throughout the whole damn thing, which I should in a lot of aspects. There's like beautiful scenes in the film when characters connect, but the movie opens up where one of our lead characters, we kind of follow a few characters here, is a 6-year-old girl, and she opens up all these out of a coffin. and she's delivered in this coffin, and all these other girls are sitting around her, and they all introduce themselves, and they all have different pigtails or ribbons in their hair. We have, of course, the young girl is given red, and then we have orange, we have yellow, green, blue, and velvet, and we're kind of seeing these are kind of a system, a tier system here, where each of these people has learned more, and they're all told that they're going to be here forever. You're never leaving here. And as they progress, they move up in tiers and of that nature. And each day they have to go learn, ballet. And as it goes on, more and more kind of layers, I guess, are revealed, and you start to figure out that almost immediately at this day and age, I thought, is this some sort of Epstein kind of, grooming area with these young girls and these kind of, characters within. And the women that run it, obviously, seem to be tortured as well, and seem to have a difficult time with it. But as it goes on, we kind of transfer between these kind of young characters. We have the young girl who befriends like the oldest girl, and the oldest girl's kind of taking care of her within her house. We have multiple houses with the multiple ribbons, right? I think, like I said, 6 girls in each house and 5 houses, so like 30 different characters, although we mostly focus on the one house. But we have all these different characters, one of which who wants to strive to be the best at the ballet, one of which who's older and kind of moving forth into the next layer, and then we have this young girl who's kind of learning the routes of it. So we kind of learn a little bit of every aspect of their journey through this kind of thing and start to piece it together what we think it's going to be until it kind of ends on this note, right? I don't know if it ends as dark as you would think, but it definitely, the water was such an important factor in for some of the characters, and we kind of end in water as well. So it's definitely something to look into. Maybe not, maybe so. But I thought it was a really well done movie. I thought the acting was fantastic. I thought the mystery angle was great. I thought everything about it was interesting, creepy. I mean, anything, the ballet dancing at an all-girls school immediately takes me back to the movies like The House That Screamed, or Suspiria, or all the other classic kind of a phenomenon. Any of the art schools where it's like a bunch of kids that go there and are kind of trapped or isolated definitely reminds me of that kind of style, kind of deal. But I thought this was a great film, really interesting film. I'm sure that tons of people could dig deeper into here and pull all these different things out, and some of them do in the features. We have Introduction by Lucile, the director. I don't want to mispronounce her name again. We have 2 shorts by her. De Natura, which is about 2 girls kind of sitting in nature. It's relatively short, good to look at, but I'm not sure, what's going on necessarily. But then we have Nectar, which is a bizarre one that's about 18 minutes long, following this kind of queen bee woman kind of thing. And I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that idea that it's kind of comparing, the hive nest, the bee, the colony, the worker bees to society was really nice. Innocence, explained by actress Zoe Klar. Clockwork Dolls, Ritual, Time and Innocence, visual essay. And then the visual essay was good as well. 2025 IFC Center Q&A with Lucile, which was pretty hard to hear for me because, the audio is never great in these Q&As, so that it wasn't amazing to hear. But overall, I thought this was a great start to the set. It also includes, of course, Evolution, Earwig, and the Ice Tower, which I think is her entire filmography. But yeah, very interesting stuff here. Love the Severin box sets. Definitely will dive into another one of these next week. Looking forward to it. And I always feel like I'm learning something. That's always a good thing, When the day you stop learning is the day you die, right? Is that what they say? Okay, I'm going to be kind of brief with this one because I don't really want to spoil it, but it's pretty much the most popular movie, I think, right now in theaters. By the time it comes out, maybe it won't be. But that is Obsession, yes. So I went and saw Obsession. I haven't seen a horror movie in theaters, or any movie really in theaters, in a while. I had a couple of movies I really didn't care for back to back to back. It kind of soured me a little bit. I know I shouldn't be like that. Movie theaters right down the street. So my friends wanted to go see Obsession. I said, yes, I heard good things about it. I believe it's the same filmmakers who did Milk and Cereal, YouTuber. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I know they definitely are a YouTuber. That seems to be the kind of thing going on here. And they're delivering a lot of cool movies. I enjoyed the Smile movies, also from a YouTuber. I heard Iron Lung was interesting enough. So we have a lot of that kind of going on here. So Obsession, this is, I don't want to say standard at all because there's not really anything too standard about this movie at all. But it reminds me a bit of It Follows. It reminds me a bit of Talk to Me and things of that nature kind of deal. And of course, the Monkey's Paw story, right? Monkey's Paw story. People are like, it's just a monkey's paw. Guys, there's only like 10 fucking stories to tell. And it's how you do it and how you tell it would make it interesting, really, at this point, right? So it is kind of a monkey's paw story. We kind of introduce, I guess I'd say we have kind of like 4 major characters here. And that's kind of where, like, if you really focus on it, you're like, I guess the budget shows in that it's such a minimal cast and kind of minimal locations. But it never feels low budget. It never feels cheap. It really feels like a great kind of bigger movie. And it's one of these movies where everything is pretty damn serious and pretty damn grounded. Of course, people say funny things or silly things in dialogue or absurd things happen, and they seem to be funny because, hell, in this situation, it would be from an outsider, but it's really twisted and fucked up all at the same time. It's like that nervous laughter kind of deal here. But it seems to be a pretty grounded world, except one kind of odd thing in it, which I always kind of can latch onto because everyone's acting like this is absurd, and it should be absurd. So we have this young guy. I'd say they're early 20s or something like that, maybe college-bound kind of kids. And they all work in a music store, and I think one of the girls' dads is actually played by Andy Richter. Didn't even recognize Andy Richter in this one, but so they all work there, which is crazy because I was like, is this modern times? Because there's no way that you'd employ 4 kids working in a music store and they'd all be working at the same shifts. There's just no, can't sustain that. I don't even know if music stores even fucking exist like this anymore. Guitar Center and shit like that. But so we kind of have these 4 main characters, one of which is kind of infatuated with one of the girls that works there. They're friends. They all are a quartet of friends. They go out. But one of the guys really likes this girl. He's incredibly nervous. In the first like 15, 20 minutes, you're like, dude, stop. It's so aggravating, right? But like, you have that young mentality, right, where you're just so scared to ask somebody or whatnot. But we kind of learn who these characters are and all that kind of stuff like that. And one day he ends up kind of wanting to confess to her, and he can't do it. But he ended up stopping at this kind of, I guess you'd say, like a cult kind of novelty shop. At first you think it's kind of a novelty shop, but a cult store. And he sees these kind of Make-A-Wish things, which I guess have some buzz on there, some popularity. He looked up, on the line, and a lot of people say it actually works. It's bullshit. It works. So he takes one of these Make-A-Wish things, and he's going to give it to her. But, he can't. I don't want to spoil this too much, but he ends up, it's right in the trailer, he ends up making a wish about somebody loving you, and the whole story is be careful what you wish for. So saying that's kind of the setup to the movie. Without spoiler, I'll talk about it. I loved the movie. I thought it was fantastic. I thought there was really genuinely scary moments. I thought it was genuinely upsetting, generally unsettling as well. I thought that they used makeup, and I think they might use digital effects in some of the people's faces to make them seem, I don't want to spoil everything, but really uncanny and unpleasant. And there's moments where like something will kind of like the facade will fall through, and actually you'll see the real horror, and that absolutely horrified me. That's where I'm talking about the talk to me kind of idea right there. And also reminded me of Smile Talk to Me, It Follows in kind of a weird way. And I liked all those movies, but I like this better than It Follows, I think, and I like this better than Smile, and I think I like this better, about the same as Talk to Me. So like I have all these kind of issues with it like that. I mean, like comparisons, but I think the acting's great. I think that it just gets more and more tragic and twisted as it goes on, and I absolutely loved how it ended. And so I just want to say that everybody in the movie is fantastic, and particularly the 2 leads. And this character is not necessarily a likable person. He's selfish in a lot of aspects, but he starts digging himself deeper and deeper, and you're like, what would I do here? I'd do that. And then he's like, that's what he tries to do, and you're like, fuck. Fuck. I always love when a character's like, that's what I would do. Like, I'm like, I would do that. And the character says verbatim what I said in my head. And I was like, oh shit. And then, not necessarily kind of go through anything else. But, without spoilers, I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. Good sound design, creepy moments. Now we're going to go in spoilers here. So basically, highly recommended. But there's a character. The character becomes. He wishes for the person to love them, and something happens. Where they're obviously not exactly themselves. Just in fact, he calls the customer service line. Sorry about that. My camera's acting really weird, so we might have a little bump here. He calls the customer service line at one point during the movie, and they say, just because this isn't. Just because you wished it for doesn't make it any less real, which is such a twisted line within the movie. But overall, I just absolutely love this movie because those breaks in reality are some of the most terrifying things. Highly recommend Obsession. I don't want to go too deep into it, but great stuff. Really original story. Original take on a story we've seen before, which is probably every original movie ever. But check it out. Good stuff. Okay, I wanted to dive into this one before I covered the one for 1983. And this is a huge blind spot for me. And I would love to go in depth on this one, but I definitely will when I cover it for 1972 if I ever live that long. But this is The Legend of Boggy Creek by Charles B. Pierce. And I've seen Charles B. Pierce movies. I've seen The Town of Dreaded Suntown, The Evictors, and I enjoy his work. He wrote for Sudden Death. He wrote Sudden Death, the screenplay, the Clint Eastwood 1983 Dirty Harry movie. So I'm familiar with Charles B. Pierce's work, a regional filmmaker, made good stuff, interesting guy. But The Legend of Boggy Creek was pretty much one of the most infamous, kind of docu kind of horror movies ever ever made, because I guess the concept, the way it was done, was very original. It's very different, you know. And I'd say like stuff like Blair Witch and Cannibal Holocaust were definitely kind of a little bit like it. So you know, we have like I'm trying to think of Yeti and Abominable Snowman, Sasquatch movies before this. We have, of course, the Hammer movie from 1956, 54 with Peter Cushing. But we have one that came out in 1970 with John Carradine and one of the Mitchum's kids, Bigfoot. And I guess, I was talking to like a relative, and they said after that movie came out, it was Bigfoot Fanatics. You know, when was that one tape where we have the discovered? But regardless, so we have this huge infatuation with Bigfoot, and one of the biggest ones here is, you know, this Legend of Boggy Creek. I think this is probably the most infamous Bigfoot movie, right? 72. And this one, it's got that, it's PG, but it scared more people than most R-rated movies because it has that weird kind of semi-feel, docu feel to it. So it opens up, and we have like, you know, the kind of the swamp and all these animals. You're like watching The Prey again for a second from 83. But yeah, it has all these like these animal clippings, and it's talking about this kind of the Fout monster. And it kind of goes into these reenactments of these people kind of, you know, talking about them running into this this creature, this Sasquatch, or what, if you will, this monster out here, and whatnot. And they kind of do these reenactments, not real actors, which adds like a sense of realism to it. And some of the moments are actually genuinely creepy and different and weird. And we have these kind of strange kind of music within there that becomes goofy, but at the same time very fitting for a kind of regional film of the time. I think that, you know, Charles B. Pierce was definitely, if you watch The Town That Dreaded Sundown, that definitely has these odd scenes of comedy. And I think Legend of Boggy Creek has it as well. I enjoy both films. I think they're definitely comparable. This one definitely feels a little bit more rough around the edges for the sole fact that it doesn't have any names in it like a Ben Johnson or something like that. It definitely feels 100% regional. It got that semi-docu feel. It looks a lot better than this. The reason I never watched Boggy Creek, to be brutally honest, is because they were all public domain shitty releases, unwatchable looking releases, until they put this out on Blu-ray and 4K. I have the Blu-ray here. And I rewatched it, and I was like, man, this thing, watched it for the first fucking time, and I was like, yeah, this thing holds up. It's pretty good stuff, and I always knew it would, but it took me for years to finally watch this. When was this Blu-ray released? Probably like 10 years ago, and I finally got around to it. But yeah, it looks pretty damn good. Rated G. This might be the scariest rated G movie ever. I don't freaking know, and I don't want to go super in depth, because to be honest, it's something that you talk about and experience, but it's not something that I have all that much to say about. But I would recommend The Legend of Boggy Creek. I might talk a little bit, probably even less about the next one I'm going to talk about from 1983. But hey, let's get into those 1983 movies.
I have returned.
Okay. Show me.
Where is the music now? The sound of laughter. There was never laughter.
Like?
What's what like?
Screwing a psycho.
What the fuck was that?
It's gone.
Guy blows dead dogs. Just lay it in there.
Eat shit and die, Ricky!
Eat shit and live, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, he's a little wet.
31. 32. 32. Year of a man's prime. Loved by many women. You might still learn to swim. 32. Going. Gone.
The kid was cut in half, Arnie. They had to scrape his legs up with a shovel.
Well, isn't that what you're supposed to do with shit? Scrape it up with a little shovel.
One final moment of revenge.
Wondering what's real. All of it is real.
You You want to see something really scary?
You bet.
Really?
Yeah.
Get the video, Joe. Long live the new flesh.
No choice but to kill the son of a bitch.
Living one's entire life in a state of fear. It is all I have ever known. Fear.
Are you ready? Okay, go ahead. What are you doing?
Okay, the first one is from Vinegar Syndrome, VSA, and Archive here. Boggy Creek 2, and the legend continues. This is one that has weird, like sometimes it's listed as 84, 85, but I think it was 83. Well, that's what we're going with, Internet Movie Database. This is a VSA, number 35 VSA, and 355 out of 4,000. So Charles B. Pierce again directs this one. He stars in this one, and this isn't as good as the original. Anyone would say that. I think there was another kind of weird sequel, The Return of Boggy Creek, or Return to Boggy Creek, which I don't think is necessarily a beloved movie either. So this is an oddball movie here. Charles B. Pierce definitely didn't want to, make a movie just to cash in. He didn't want to sell the rights, according to the commentary, which is a fantastic commentary. Actually, my favorite part was listening to the commentary here. Brand new commentary track with cryptozoology author David Coleman, and I expected him to just talk about Sasquatch and Bigfoot and the Fount Monster and stuff like that, but he goes into the fucking career of Charles B. Pierce, and I was like, that is very, very good stuff here, and talks about his history and talks about his reasoning for wanting to make this movie and not wanting to make it earlier and things of that nature. And this one, it just really doesn't work, to be honest. It's not a great movie. It's kind of boring. It's kind of tedious. I don't even know if you'd call it a horror film. The first one has a little bit more horror aspects to it, creepy moments. But this one, it's kind of boring. We have Charles B. Pierce playing kind of this professor that kind of takes a couple students out with him, and he's like, well, we're going to figure this out, right? And he goes to the same, like, the small town, the Fount Town, interacting with the locals, and they all laugh at him and everything like that. But he does run into a couple people that tell him the story again. The monster's more in the forefront. It's not really as hidden as it was in the previous ones. We even have a little monster here, which makes it even more kind of comedic, right? Where this sheriff tells the story, he's like, yeah, the monster jumped on my back trying to get my hamburgers. And you're like, this is fucking kind of stupid, guys. But it's not too different from the original. It just doesn't work nearly as much. Maybe the time has passed, and maybe it's just less eventful, less film, more polished, I guess, if you'd say. But another aspect that I don't love about this movie is that, like the first like half an hour, 40 minutes, the most exciting thing is that they run into like kind of like crazy wild dog, and you're just like, this is so boring and so tedious, and characters aren't exactly, amazing. I think that Charles B. Pierce is okay. He's fine. But, the end kind of ends up, they run into this kind of guy in the middle of the woods and everything, the middle of the kind of the swamp and everything of that nature, and he's kind of harboring the monster, the kid. He accidentally injured it, and that's pretty much the climax. Of course, the Fount Monster wants its kid, and that's pretty much it. The guy who plays the old man is kind of a interesting character actor, but besides that, the Boggy Creek 2, The Legend Continues, is not really worthwhile. It's not really worth your time. It looks great on Blu-ray, and that's a little cute, the little Sasquatch. I don't even know if it's technically a Sasquatch. I know the cryptozoologists out there are like, he's not a Sasquatch. He's actually a grassman, American grassman. I'm like, I don't give a fuck, all right? It's not real. Fucking somebody's getting pissed off. But it's like, whatever. But we have the Sasquatch and little baby. That's fucking hilarious. Reminds me of like Savannah Smiles cover art or something like that with Sasquatches. But regardless, Boggy Creek 2, The Legend Continues. Not a fantastic movie, but well worth watching to check off a Charles B. Pierce movie made in 83. Not as good as any of his other movies that I have seen, but hey, it's definitely an interesting kind of piece coming out in 83. Way too late for it. And the original movie did so damn well, made so much money. Cultural kind of, iconic film there. But this one, not so much. Boy, rewatching this sucker, what a fucking winner here. 1983 Canucksploitation flick, Self-Defense, aka Siege. Now, this has two cuts on there, the original theatrical cut and then an extended Japanese cut. It has like 10-15 minutes added for the home release of them. It has both cuts on there. I've seen both cuts. The theatrical cut's the way to go. The other stuff is not needed. It's not horrible, but hey, boom. So Siege. I love siege movies, and this is definitely a survival kind of style movie. I don't know if I'd call this, a horror film, but I think it's enough horror adjacent to be interesting, and it definitely has, it's filmed like a horror film at many times, and it's scary as shit, and I think it's adjacent, and I think it's a perfect movie to talk about. But, yeah, so this is going to be one of these things where I don't want to sound like an idiot. I talked about this movie before, and the director himself in the commentary, it's with him and Jason Eisner, famous Canadian director who did Hobo with a Shotgun and Dark Side of the Ring and that nature. But he talks about it, he's like, I really wasn't trying to say anything. I was just trying to make a kind of entertaining movie, kind of an exploitation kind of piece. Action movies were big at the time, and that's what they kind of wanted. So I was just filling the kind of quota for the movie. But he wanted to tell truth within the story, and he certainly does tell truth. So essentially, this is based on like a true kind of all the cops went on picket. They went what the hell am I? Strike. All the cops went on strike in was it Nova Scotia? Can't remember 100%. But we have like news footage of that and whatnot. But all the cops go on strike, so there's this group of kind of like right-wing extremists that are going to go out. The main guy, the kind of heroic type is guy, is kind of an anarchist, if you will. He lives in kind of a rundown apartment with I don't know if his girlfriend lives there as well, but he's got a roommate kind of in a duplex kind of area. And basically in his free time, he spends like helping these kind of couple blind guys. I don't know if it's like a Big Brother type situation. One of which is played by one of my favorite kind of character actors, Keith Knight, who pops up in Class of 1984 as Barnyard. He also plays in Class in My Bloody Valentine is the best character in that one. Just Meatballs, just a really fun actor. Known Origin, I believe he's in that one as well, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe I'm wrong on that. But anyways, yeah, he's a great actor in here. Just small little role here. And he takes care of these kind of blind guys, kind of does a whole, helps them out, whatnot. But there's this group of right-wing kind of fanatics, and they decide to kind of go to, all the bars are everything's supposed to be closed down because there's no police officers. We kind of think RoboCop, right? Remember when they kind of, cops don't go on strike. But, this is based on true incident. They kind of, these right-wing kind of guys, complete buffoons. Like, they introduce him, and the lead guy is just this annoying guy. He looks like Shelly, kind of, from Friday 13th Part 3. I believe the actor went on to do DEFCON 4. He was in that one. And the same director, actually. DEFCON 4, it's been a long time since I watched that one. But I remember him being particularly obnoxious in that one, too. Does a really good job at that role. But I don't know the character's name, but he's just an absolute piece of shit. And he gets his buddies together. You have, these kind of distinctive looks and distinctive personalities. You have, that kind of aggressive douchebag guy. You have a heavy guy in Rosie. You have kind of a wimpy guy, and then you have a quiet, kind of silent, kind of type guy, and then you also have another kind of enforcer kind of guy who actually plays a cop in The Mouth of Madness, the one who's with the demon face and kind of the scene where he's beating the guy in the alley. So you have this group of kind of goons, and they end up going to this gay bar, and they're just trying to rough them up and scare them. But of course somebody dies, and they have to call in their kind of enforcer, the guy who's in charge of this right-wing kind of militia, and he decides to kill everyone. One of the gay guys ends up escaping, and he ends up running and getting into the apartment duplex with these couple of guys and these people hanging out, and it becomes a siege, right? They want this guy, kind of straw dogs, right? Give us David Warner and that kind of deal, and he has to defend his house, defend this guy, and they end up fighting back against these kind of, I guess you'd say semi-militia style guys that have access to way stronger guns, and they have basically putting together this small kind of, anarchist cookbook of fucking shit to fight back with, which is an incredibly entertaining movie here. I like the lead guy. I think the bad guys are memorable and gross, and I think that when the action and the violence happens, it happens pretty quick and realistic too, in the point, when there's going to be this kind of violent outburst, expect to be drawn out, and it's just when it actually hits, it happens relatively quick, and I like that. I think this is a great movie. I think that there's a lot of truth to it. I think, I would say this, this movie really predicted future. The truth is, we don't all change all that much. There's always going to be these people that hate this group of people or hate that group of people that are going to go overboard or do something absolutely fucking ridiculous, no matter where you are in life and whatnot. And that's definitely just shown here in a truth factor. Like the director said, I'm not out there trying to prove a point or anything. I just want to show some truth to the matter. And here's what it is. There's a group of, far right kind of guys that go out and try to kill, these homosexual people in a bar. Or not necessarily kill them, but rough them up, and something goes wrong and they have no choice. They do have a choice, obviously, to do it, but to eliminate everybody in a really crazy, disturbing manner. And I feel like the action in this, the movie's not so super dark and bleak, but it's damn serious. And I feel like the only way to put the tone in, and this is going to be weird, I feel like the tone of Terminator, kind of just very, very serious, but not completely the void of any humanity. I don't know how to say this. It's serious, but it's not, there's humor within the dialogue or within the characters slightly, but it's not a comedy. There's no comedy in the movie to be had. I feel like the tone is closest to Terminator. and I don't know. That's what I feel. Love the movie. Looks good. Sounds good. I highly recommend it if you like action or siege movies. I know that this one's probably got some love, but this is one of my favorite non-horror movies from 1983. I think that a lot of people will enjoy this one. Highly recommended. Siege. Great stuff. Self-defense. Gonna be relatively quick with these next couple 1983 ones. The first one up is a Brazilian flick, a TV flick. Looks definitely shot on video, as most things for TV were at the time. So this is The Monkey's Paw. This is a rendition of The Monkey's Paw for Brazilian TV. It's like an 80-minute kind of deal here. And this one starts off pretty quick. I think that, and is pretty fast-paced, but The Monkey's Paw story to me, it can be told in like 30 minutes. So, you know, it starts off quick, but then you're like, okay, let's wrap this up. We know The Monkey's Paw story. It's relatively quick story, especially if you see the 1972 Tales in the Crypt. They do it in like 20 minutes. Okay? We can get this done in 20 minutes. The story's been done a million times, but what happens is we have this family that's really down on their luck. It's a family of four. This father, he's out of work, and the wife, obviously, she doesn't work either. So they're just like very poor. We have an older son who's the only one working as like kind of a mechanic, a plane mechanic, and a young daughter. So we have these good moments where like he shows his weakness. He shows that he's embarrassed. He's like, I'm embarrassed that I'm getting old. I'm embarrassed that I can't provide for the family. And you're like, this is touching, nice character development stuff. And they move in, and we kind of see where they're at in life. We have one son working, providing for everything. The area's run down, the apartment's run down, and their neighbors are these two old people that are definitely creepy, definitely weird. They kind of give you like Pet Sematary kind of vibes. Although Judd wasn't necessarily a bad guy; he was just kind of like possessed to do it. But you get this idea that it's like these people are up to no good. They live right by a cemetery. No one would want to live by a cemetery, so it's creepy, of course. And they're going to start pushing this kind of monkey's paw idea on them. And it is a little stretched out. We add a little bit more characters and stuff like that. I don't know how fast-paced the original story is. I'm sure it's probably more in line with something like this. But, of course, the story is, they wish for something and something tragic happens, and then they're going to wish for some reversal and whatnot and try to make it come back. It's not an overly graphic movie, but there's a couple moments of blood splatter where you're like, oh, that's a little bit there, here, and there. Overall, it's fine. It's completely fine. It's completely serviceable TV version of A Monkey's Paw. I think this probably, scarred a lot of kids in Brazil when it went on TV. But yeah, it's the story we've all known and seen, and I like that it takes place kind of in this Brazilian kind of ghetto area. I think that adds like a nice backdrop to it. Overall decent, nothing amazing, nothing horrible. Again, I used the subtitles that YouTube created for it, and they weren't too bad. I think it was pretty close to what it was saying, but overall decent. Okay, the next one is a 30-minute short directed by Robert Harmon, who would go on to direct The Hitcher from 1986. This is 1983, of course. This is China Lake. This movie would actually be redone as a feature-length in 1990 with none of the same cast, from my understanding. So, Charles Napier, great character actor from the Russ Meyer stuff, Silence of the Lambs, Deep Space, tons of movies, good actor. Charles Napier plays this cop in this one. It also has some familiar faces in William Sanderson and Mickey Jones, so good character actors in here. If you're making a short film, it's always good to cast character actors in leading roles and big roles. But in the very opening of this movie, we have this police kind of read off, hey, you're stationed here, you're stationed there, going over all these cops, and we kind of realize one of the seats is missing. So we established this guy's a cop, and oh no, he's got a vacation day in, and he's kind of driving around this kind of China Lake desert area in California, and we see him kind of pull over somebody, right? Charles Napier's a perfect cop. He pulls over somebody, and we have this really kind of demented, twisted scene of this cop who's just completely fucking hinged. This predates Maniac Cop, it predates Psycho Cop, yeah, but it definitely has that kind of vibe with the big aviators and desert and stuff, and his idea how to kill people is just a twisted, really demented way. But I don't want to spoil absolutely everything about it, but we kind of see him go to a diner, and he's just like kind of just this straight up sociopath, lie about things and have these fantastical kind of ideas where he's like assaulting people within the cafe, but then it all kind of ends with him actually carrying out another kind of crime. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's relatively short. It's effective. I think it's well done. I think that you can definitely see some Hitcher in here. Hitcher's a great movie. This one's pretty damn good short movie. I enjoyed it a lot, China Lake, and the cast really makes it go a long way. But good stuff. Check this short out. Okay, the Patreon pick here is Never So Few, and this is by legendary director John Sturges, who of course did The Great Escape, which I absolutely love. And yeah, so this one has a great cast right away. Well, I was like, oh, this one sounds really interesting. I know somebody picked it, probably because the cast, John Sturges, like I said, classic director here. We have Frank Sinatra starring, and I believe this is a 50s or is it 60s? It might be 60s, but regardless, we got Frank Sinatra. I was like, okay, I've seen Sinatra pop up in a couple movies here and there, mostly his later stuff, that's probably not as popular. Sinatra, of course, famous singer, became actor, tons of stuff, icon. We have Richard Johnson in here, which I absolutely love seeing in a big role here. Richard Johnson from The Haunting and Zombie and a million other movies. We have Charles Bronson in here. Bronson worked with Sturges before The Great Escape. And God, did Sturges do Magnificent Seven? I want to say he absolutely did Magnificent Seven, but I don't want to sound like a fucking idiot. But I should have. I feel like relying on my memory is not always the best to do anymore. But Magnificent Seven, also a great film. But so we have Charles Bronson, who worked in Magnificent Seven and in The Great Escape, and he was obviously a bit actor, not a bit actor, always part of a ensemble cast before he had his big break in like Europe making movies, and then he was blew up with Death Wish and internationally, and he became this big icon that he is, rightfully so. But he was always kind of an ensemble piece, or playing kind of characters like part Native American and stuff like that, as is this one too. So it's a World War II movie here, which is odd because it's not fighting the Nazi Germans, the Germans. It's not fighting post the Germans and everything like that, post D-Day stuff where we are island hopping. It's early in the war, fighting against the Japanese and stuff like that, paired up with I believe the Filipinos and stuff of that nature. So like we have this like kind of a little bit of tension between some of the soldiers being Filipino and the Americans and everything like that. Like Bronson's actually plays kind of a racist character. He's a Native American, part Native American, but he doesn't like dealing with the nips, as he calls them, obviously a racial slur there. But we also have Steve McQueen, who worked with Bronson in Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, John Sturges. So, yeah, another great actor in there. And we have, am I missing anyone? A couple other familiar faces. Brian Donlevy, who I love seeing from the Quatermass film. So, to me, the cast was really the kind of driving force in this movie. Tons of people that I really enjoyed, all being under the same kind of roof and everything like that. And again, named director here. Overall, I thought this movie was decent. I thought the war stuff was entertaining. I thought that they had the camaraderie between some of the soldiers and back and forth I thought was good. I like Richard Johnson and Frank Sinatra's back and forth. Johnson's great in this one. I think Johnson probably steals the movie. He's mostly kind of a eccentric British character, British soldier deal here. But yeah, I think Sinatra's decent. I mean, Sinatra is not the best actor in the world, but he's got charisma, of course, and he's always worth watching. But this movie does kind of fall into like more of a love story. A huge chunk of this is kind of a love story of the characters bouncing back and forth and falling in love and all that kind of stuff like that. Sinatra's love interest and the war stuff, I think, is a little bit more interesting than the love interest. But this movie where a lot of main characters do end up perishing, and they kind of unveil this kind of conspiracy, this kind of awful thing where they realize that they're not actually fighting the Japanese. They were actually having entanglements with the Chinese soldiers that were doing something shady and everything like that. Now they lost a lot of men because of it, and this kind of puts Sinatra over the edge here and puts his kind of life in jeopardy for court-martial and stuff. And I think that's interesting as well. And I think Don Levy at the end delivers a great speech, and I think he's a great character. I enjoyed that kind of stuff. Overall, I don't think this is some fantastic movie in comparison. I think it's just average, probably, and I think I'm going to say this, I don't think it's bad. And I'm not as poorly rated as some of the people rated on Letterboxd, but I don't think this is some fucking unsung classic or anything of that nature. I think it's cool. I think there's a lot of interesting aspects about it, but I don't think it's an amazing film either. I think that it gets lost a little bit in the love story stuff and that kind of angle where I don't give a shit about it, to be honest. I like seeing Bronson. He does play similar. Bronson always kind of played this similar quiet type, but he's not. He's a little rougher on the edges in this one. McQueen's fine. And I always find it kind of fascinating. McQueen, he always played like the young, hip kind of kid. In this one, they're like, he's young. What do you want to do with it? And like, McQueen never looked young to me. I mean, he unfortunately died when he was 50 years old, which absolutely sucks. Miss McQueen was a great actor and a great screen presence. But even in this, I never think McQueen is like a young-looking guy. He never fucking looked young to me. Even in The Blob, I was like, McQueen looking a little old. Not like bad old, but he never looked like a kid to me. And him as the hot shot in Magnificent Seven I buy, but besides that, I've never bought any of his hot shot kind of antics in terms of looks. I love him in The Getaway. I love him in all his movies he's in, but I just never kind of bought that kind of hot shot kind of guy. Young guy. He's a hot shot for sure, but not necessarily the young guy kind of deal. But I would recommend checking this out just for seeing Richard Johnson and Steve McQueen and of course Bronson. But I don't think, and the Don Lovey speech at the end, I don't think it's some amazing kind of masterwork or anything of that nature. But yeah, let's get into these questions. All right, guys, questions, comments, and concerns beyond sour ground. You did kind of look like George Eastman back when you had medium length hair and a scruffy beard. I remember for a while that was a whole running joke. Haha. I'm actually Italian American. My uncle looks like George Eastman too. Kind of crazy how iconic his look was. I have attended a lot of different conventions over the years, and unfortunately, there's nothing else out there comparable to Wasteland. Most of the other cons in Ohio and surrounding states are expensive, crowded, family-friendly Comic-Con style horror conventions that sell photo ops and nickel and dime the fans everywhere they can. While you can catch some of the regular Wasteland vendors at the shows, no other show has the Cinema Wasteland atmosphere. No other shows screen 16mm movies or even DVDs for that matter, and there's nothing that can rival a Wasteland party. I don't think Wasteland could ever be recreated, but if someone can put something similar together, I'd love to be involved, because right now I have this huge void where Wasteland is supposed to be, and it really sucks. I understand. At one time, I did toy with the idea of trying to find a Wasteland show, grabbing interviews. I tried toy the idea of to film a Wasteland show, grabbing interviews with a lot of regulars and trying to capture some of the shenanigans too, but I never did. I felt like Cinema Wasteland was deserving of a documentary, or at least mini-doc, so I thought about being the person to step up and make it, but then I realized I was more interested in being part of the documentary and being able to watch the documentary than be the one making it. LOL. However, if I knew April was the last show, at the very least, I would have taken a lot of pictures or tried to record something. I didn't bother with it because I was counting on having a few more shows to do things like that. I feel quite strongly that Wasteland should have a final show. Wasteland deserves to have a proper finale. I agree, to be honest, but hey, I'm not the guy that's got to put it on, so I don't blame them for doing what they did. I never thought I'd see the day where I miss being at a shitty hotel, but here we are. I'm not even from Ohio, but Strongsville grew to feel like a second home for me. I get it. That hotel sucked balls, but I had nostalgia. Nostalgia overpowers any thoughts. Like, that's funny how we all are. It's like, it sucked, but we loved it, and it's better than what you had because nostalgia. That's how everybody is. Brandon Timmons, 5415. What a shame about Cinema Wasteland be meaning to make the journey to one for several years now, with the intention of making it in real life, making in real life friends out of you. The 22 Shots crew, Sick on Cinema guys, and everyone else I had tangentially known through the internet, physical media circles. Looks like that dream is out the window now, unfortunately. No one I know around me has any interest in any of that stuff or passion for genre film. Bummer, I know, I get it. Dick for Flanders, you should host your own physical media event, sir. Mrparka's Movie Mania, you can invite Bruce and Troy. You draw a crowd for sure. When the event is done, you can yell for everyone to get out and not dwell on the lawn. Nah, I'd never do that. Anyways, no one would come. But I would not ever want to be involved in throwing a show. The stress amount of all that crap. And I think you'd just be embittered with it after the end of it. The movie business does seem to be in serious trouble these last few years, which is why I veer towards indie companies. If they offer decent product, for a lack of better words, some have even pleasantly surprised me. Questions. Do you feel that creatives leaving Hollywood or even the U.S. is a good or bad thing? I have no idea on that idea. I mean, I don't want to think it's a good idea, creatives leaving the U.S. Of course it's not a good idea. But maybe they'll have more freedom. Time will tell. Has going to the movies actually become a chore? Have we, as an audience members, just become old, crankier, and spoiled? I think you generally become older, crankier, and spoiled, but I do think that it has become a chore when run times are bloated, and you got a comedy or a horror comedy or a horror movie that should be 80 minutes, and it's fucking 2 hours and 5 minutes, and then with the trailers, it's 2.5 hours for a mediocre-ass movie that has nothing to say. 3, were you ever afraid of campfire stories or horror movies about camp as a kid when you went to summer camp? I don't remember. I did go to summer camp. I never got scared at summer camp, 6th grade camp, but I mean, we went camping at a campground and I got scared a couple times. I mean, the idea, we had a cornman story, I've told that several times, I'm sure, till next week, God willing, if I haven't melted. It's hot as Hades here. Getting hot here too. I'm enjoying it now, but I won't later. No More Room in Hell podcast. Bro, that Pusher Trilogy being tossed in a 2-disc holder is crazy work. Lucky that my discs were all intact and not damaged, but it seems that forcing 2 discs to be stacked on top of each other highly increases the odds of accidental damage. I suppose the fact that it's barely $20 for a 4K release, an entire trilogy softens the blow, though. I agree. What the flick? It sucks to hear about Eastman and Wasteland. Just this past weekend, the 22nd to 24th, I went to Texas Frightmare in Dallas and was speaking with Stephen Byro about Sin Wasteland. I've only been once, so I know nothing about the behind the scenes, but Byro said he'd seen it coming and seemed not to like the showrunner and seem not to like the showrunner. I've been going to cons for about 15 years. I've been 5 years. I've been to 5 different cons, and they all had their pros and cons. God, I'm a nerd. But Wasteland was among my favorite experiences. I could go on but forever, but I won't. So R.I.P. Wasteland. Agreed. Mikey Hoare. Crazy to me that some people are actually dropping $70 for Hunter's Blood. Don't be surprised when prices keep going up because you're continuously showing them that you'll pay them. I don't buy everything on the first day or anything like that, but I do buy everything. I do buy some things, and I'm gonna buy Hunter's Blood because it's a movie I've been waiting for fucking ever. I spent more on the Laserdisc, probably not the Laserdisc, but I bought that movie so many fucking times. I do get your sentiment though. I don't buy everything, but I'll buy a couple here and there. You know, like the Day of the Dead I put up with the order. It's like $50 or something like that. It's my favorite movie. Hunter's Blood is a movie that I've always loved. It's been on my checklist to get on DVD and Blu-ray for over 20 years. So yeah, I'm gonna buy it. Mistake or not, I'm at that point now where I'd rather have less movies that I want than more movies that I don't, and I am willing to pay premium dollar for that. But at the same time, today, that bringing out the Dead went up on that special edition 4K a while back, and I didn't buy it. But now the standard edition just popped up on 4K, and I bought it for $15 because I love that movie, but I wasn't willing to pay $30, $40 for a deluxe edition of Bringing Out the Dead. So as you know, I wait. I rarely go crazy and buy it first day or anything like that, but sometimes I do. Jupiter Mission 1208. Life will never be the same without Wasteland. I miss that shitty hotel too. Haha. Hope there's another event we can all meet up at. Mason. Indeed, Mason. Bruce Holcheck as an unnecessary update was indeed Elvis, Civil War musical melodrama. Love Me Tender that featured younger Neville Brand. I hesitate to say young Neville Brand because there's no such thing. Ha ha ha. Also, I will mention that Neville Brand was one of the drunks in Without Warning. I couldn't remember if he was or not. Ken Coakley, I'm sorry to hear about Cinema Wasteland. The same thing happened to me with Rock and Shock. I went to a few other conventions, but none of them were Rock and Shock. I went to Boston Mega Fest a few times, but that was a nostalgia convention, and the place was so crowded that there was no room to move. I went once to Rhode Island Comic Con. They were oversold tickets by about 500, and there was no room to move or sit. We were there for only a day. I remember my knees giving way and Jason Momoa getting a folding chair for me to sit. I was wearing a Slayer t-shirt, so we talked about heavy metal for a while. I hadn't known that he was into metal, and he didn't have many customers because he wasn't Aquaman yet. When we left and I sat in the car, I felt such a relief like I hadn't felt before. The Providence show was more of an anime convention, so nothing interested me. All I got was a Frankenstein action figure that came with a table. I did see a guy who looked like Daryl from Run DMC. I knew it wasn't him because he was stealing a bunch of Lego sets. I vowed never to go to the Province Comic Con ever again. I went to another show called Walker Stalker Con. It was basically a show for Walking Dead fans. Even though it was in Boston, we had gotten X-Suit 3 times out of 4. It was convenient, but we could bring our stuff up to the room if we could have had too much stuff to carry around. We had a platinum VIP tickets, which meant we could get 4 free autographs and 4 free photo ops. We also got to eat with the celebrities, but there was no Blu-ray dealers. I got 11 by 17 movie posters and Funko Pops. There was one horror show called TerrorCon. They had it only once in Massachusetts. I got to meet Don Page-Turner, Don Coscarelli, and actors from Phantasm. They were amazingly nice people. I told Coscarelli that he should make a Phantasm animated series. He looked like he might try to get it off the ground. I told him that I would do the Tall Man because I do a lot of impressions, and he showed him my Tall Man impression. He got emotional. I didn't mean to upset him. Anyway, TerrorCon had no Blu-ray vendors either of all the shows I went to. Rock and Shock was the best. I went to 15 consecutive Rock and Shock shows. I spent a lot of money on Blu-ray vendors. It was given that Vinegar Syndrome would have a table every year. 70% of my pickups were Blu-rays. I know what you mean about the morning routine of waking up, taking a shower, trying to choose which shirt to wear for the occasion, going to my best friend's house to pick her up, going to the mall about rendezvous point to meet with friends, having a McDonald's breakfast, then going to Dunkin' Donuts for a best friend's iced coffee, going to CVS to buy 2 disposable cameras because my phone didn't have a camera. We all went on Saturdays because the DCU Center in Rochester was only a 40-minute drive. After each show, we went across the street to Pizzeria Uno's. A lot of celebrities would go there as well. In 2013, Sid Haig and Hannah Hall went there together. Haig had just arrived because he was appearing on Sunday. He let my best friend take a picture with him. I think you should try Texas Frightmare Weekend. I plan to go there when I walk again and move to Texas. It looks really cool. If you go, that will motivate me to go, and we'll meet you there as well. I remember that someone did a video with Texas Frightmare Weekend after the showroom was closed for the night. The couple doing the video went across the street to FYE's Electronics about Screen Factory special editions for super low prices. I miss you recording some stuff for the show a couple years ago for me because of my inability to get around. I was very grateful that you did that. I also watch the older videos from CW because it makes me feel like one of the friends talking and laughing. There's a documentary on Chris Kunschel's channel on YouTube talking about horror convention culture. The film is called Phantasm. Phantasm. But yeah, I appreciate that. Texas Frightmare is a long haul for me, man. I would have to get the plane. I do want to visit Texas, but if I do, it would be more of a week thing. I definitely just not going just for the convention. Collectus, Mystery of the Third Planet is really fun. Many Russians prefer the live-action sequel, A Guest from the Future, but that one feels less sci-fi because it's not set in the future. Interesting. Way Up Dude gives me the peace thing. Thank you. Mr. Gestations, hello, beautiful. Thank you for the heartfelt post. You always brighten my day. Thank you. Salwin Christ 500. We'll never forget the first trip out to CW, Cinema Wasteland. Went with a longtime friend, I forgot how, but we made a wrong turn and ended up on the outskirts of Pittsburgh. And when we got there in the AM for the 8-hour plus drive, hotel breakfast never tasted so good. After feeling like a kid in a candy store, seeing the dealer room in person, we went back to the room and watched some nasty trash from the toxic filth table. Probably only got a few hours of sleep in those 3 days. Sorry if I seemed a bit off. Loved it so much that I came back 3 more times. It was fun hanging with you and the other YouTube people, and really going to miss that place. We was even getting used to Strongsville. Four unforgettable weekends at that place. I suppose now it will be see you wherever a lot of the Cinema Wasteland crowd is going to be next. For sure. See you there. Travis Linscomb, I love these segments with Bruce and yourself. You guys work really well together. You can feel the passion for all the obscure pockets of cinema in your guys' conversations. I think you match each other's energy. I hope he'll keep coming back. He'll come back as much as he can, as much as he wants. Bruce Holchuk, thanks for Dave for having me. Always fun to chat about this stuff. Thanks again, Bruce. KNJHorror.com. I have a big box of the video gems called Next Victim, and another one called thriller video called Next Victim. Wonder which one it is. I haven't seen either. Thanks for the review as always. I don't think either of those. The Next Victim one I did was Brazilian. I don't think there's ever been an English-friendly release of it. Stateside or anywhere. Maybe no VHS. I'm sure there's VHS in Brazil or some South American places. Who knows? But I don't think there's ever been an English-friendly release. I know one of those. I looked them up, and I don't remember which. It might be He Kills Night After Night, possibly. And the other one looked like Sergio Martino. Probably All Colors of the Dark because it had Ivan Rasimov on it. But not 100% because I didn't do too in-depth digging there. But yeah, let's get into the update. Quickie here. First up is the Swordsman Trilogy on 4K. We have Swordsman 1, 2, and 3. They were on sale from Shout Factory here. The Golden Princess Library, when they're on sale, I definitely grab them when I can. See, I didn't buy it brand new right from Grove. And then we have the last of the Ilsa movies. This is technically maybe not an Ilsa movie, but this is from Kino, the 4K and Blu-ray. Ilsa, The Wicked Warning, directed by legendary director Jess Franco, starring Diane Thorne. The thing about this is I heard the 4K looks absolutely abysmal. I have not had a chance to watch it. I heard the Blu-ray looks pretty decent, but the 4K looks terrible. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there will be a replacement or anything like that. But we have a commentary by Troy Howarth, and we have a commentary by Diane Thorne and Howard Maurer, moderated by Martin Lewis, so that's great stuff. Other features as well. I just still got to watch the third one for the channel, but let's get the fuck out of here, guys.